What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to talk about my favorite time of year to catch fish. We're talking about May bass fishing. May is the month to be on the water if you're going to get any time off, vacation from work, whatever it is. May is the best time of year. You can find them up shallow, you can find them out deep, you can find them garden fry, you can still find them on the beds, you can still find them cruising for beds. May is the best time to catch fish. With that being said, let's jump into some of the techniques that I use that really help me put fish in the boat, and I hope you guys enjoy. First and foremost, starting first thing in the morning, you got the shad spawn, the bluegill spawn, the herring spawn, depending where you're at, of course. Up north, you're starting to get fish that are coming up. Down south, you got fish that already spawned out and they're moving out. But a frog. Throw this thing up in the grass, in the lily pads, wherever you're at, up in the wood, a frog. Great imitation of shad. Personally, I'll throw like a white color 9 times out of 10, but a frog. You can't beat a frog this time of year. Secondly, to stick with the top order, first thing in the morning, I'm going to throw a popper. This is an old school hula popper, but any kind of popper. Again, shad colors, the whites, bluegill colors, stuff like that. Everything is spawning right now. Shad, bluegill, bass, they're all up shallow. So a popper is a great imitation of shad. If you pop it just right, it hits the water. It sounds like shad popping in the mornings. I'm going to throw a frog and the popper on a 7'6" heavy with 65-pound braid. It just really helps get out of them out of the reeds, get them out of the grass. Like I said, normally when I'm throwing a frog, I'm throwing it up in the grass, I'm throwing it up in the trees, up in the really thick stuff, and I just really like the extra backbone to get it out. And then the long rod also helps long cast, that way you're covering a lot of water. Next up, kind of later in the day, whatever, search baits, a swim jig. I cannot stress enough how great a swim jig is this time of month. This paddle tail is actually all beat up from being down in Florida. Personally, I like to throw a paddle tail on the back of my swim jigs. Use whatever trailer you want. Crawls are also a really good option for the back of it. You can throw this thing around docks, around laydowns. This is a Honey Badger Lures swim jig. I'll put a link in the description so you guys can go check them out. But a swim jig, again, typically I'm throwing white if it's really clear water. If it's a little dirtier, you can go to kind of a bluegill color, a little darker, purple, blue, stuff like that. Green pumpkin is always a good color. Honestly, green pumpkin is just great year round. And to stick with the shad spawn and imitating shad, you can't argue a spinnerbait. Again, I like a double willow blades. Helps imitate a little flash, helps look like a school of shad versus just one shad like the swim jig. But this time of month, a swim jig is going to get my go-to over a spinnerbait, because normally the bass will target the shad or the bait fish that's out by itself, as opposed to a group of them. And you can roll these things through grass, trees, laydowns, docks, skip them up under docks, stuff like that. If I'm skipping docks, I'm primarily going to go to a swim jig just because it's easier to skip than a spinnerbait. You can also put a paddle tail on the back of the spinnerbait, just depending on the size of fish you're looking for. Personally, if I'm looking for numbers of fish caught and not necessarily giant fish, I'm going to throw it with no trailer. But if I'm looking for big fish, I'm going to put a paddle tail or some kind of trailer on the back of the spinnerbait, just to help generate better fish, overall quality over quantity kind of thing. My spinnerbaits and swim jigs, I'm going to throw on a 6'8" medium heavy fast action rod. It's a 6-gill chopper, my favorite rod, with 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon. It's great. I don't really see a need for braid when you're throwing something like that. You're not really throwing like super heavy cover or anything, so fluorocarbon gets my go-to. Usually 12 pound, but sometimes 15 if you're throwing around trees and stuff like that. Now we're talking square bills. Throw this thing up shallow. You can catch them garden fry, you can catch them on a bed, you can catch the females so cruising for beds, depending what part of the country you're in, a square bill. Of course, these are vector hooks, treble hooks, the tornado trebles. I'll put a link in the description so you can check them out. With my discount code, it gives you like 20% off, I think. But square bill, you throw this thing around docks, throw around trees, square bill, bluff walls, rock banks, stuff like that. And if you like catching crappie, you might snag some crappie on the way, because they'll like square bill too. But also because, like I said, they're up shallow, they're pulling out, they're kind of in between, they're staging, they're all over the place right now. You can find bass pretty well everywhere. I want to also throw in a deep diving crankbait, something like a 6XD or a DT16, something like that. Obviously, get something that dives your depth of your lake. 6XD usually does it for me. I'm going to throw, now a lot of them, you guys have to remember that I fish as a co-angler in the MLF most of the time. I'm not fishing out of my boat, so rods are limited. So I actually throw my crankbaits on a 7'2" medium heavy 6-gill cranking. It's the cranking rod. It's a great rod. I'll throw it on like a 6-speed reel. It doesn't do either one great, right? I could go to a medium to throw the square bills or a heavy to throw the deep divers, but a medium heavy does both okay, and I'm limited on rods on space as a co-angler. And also, because you can't forget, soft plastics. Guys, if you find them on a bed, if you're flipping laydowns, if you have just a great bank of trees or whatever, soft plastics, whacking worm, Texas rig, crawl, Texas rig, floating worm, a weightless fluke maybe. Soft plastics still comes into play. You can still find them on a bed. Hope this helps. Leave me a comment down below what you guys like throwing this time of year. If you like the video, lets me know that you enjoy seeing this. And if there's anything I missed that you guys like throwing, let me know. Drop it in the comments. I appreciate y'all. Go catch some fish.